Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQIA plus film festival. This is our 37th year, and we have some amazing programs as always. One of the films that we are very, very excited about is They Are Siufung, which has a world premiere this weekend at Out on Film at Outfront Theater Company. I'm going to read a description of the film, and then we're going to jump into some questions with the subject and the director. I'm very, very excited about this. They're a professional bodybuilder, an outspoken queer rights activist in Hong Kong, a city with few such voices, and a PhD candidate. Sufeng Law has spent most of their life fighting against boxes and binaries for the right to live fully and freely as her, him, themselves. The film follows the international journey of the gender fluid bodybuilder from Hong Kong to Atlanta as they challenge centuries of traditional social and cultural structure etched into Chinese and Southern American society. This is such an amazing documentary. We're so honored to be screening it, premiering it. Please welcome Sufong and the director, Jean-Luc.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you both for
Thanks
taking the
thanks a
time to
lot,
do
G.
this.
Really, really, really happy to be there, part of your festival with this film. And unfortunately, I can't make it, but Siufeng will be
Okay.
screening to meet the audience.
I'm so happy about this. Well, let me just ask both of you, how did this film come up?
Oh, well, we actually first met for a short film that I was directing, a short series, 5 stories of LGBT people in Hong Kong. And the film was out. It's called Forever Queer. It also toured the festival circuit nicely from New York to Tokyo, Taiwan. And so we did film that 5, 6 minutes piece about Siufeng. But then when I met Siufeng, I mean, we started talking and an hour meeting changed into a 2 hours, 3 hours meeting. It was so enlightening. I mean, every time really I spend with you, I keep on saying that, but
Hmm.
it's always enjoyable conversations and also deep and meaningful exchanges. And that's how the idea came, to make this film. I thought, well, 5 minutes with your phone is not enough. So we,
Exactly.
we
You-
went on a feature documentary, so 90 minutes.
yeah. You know, Sufang, there are just so many fascinating components of your life. I just, I'm sure, Jean-Luc, you could have made a 3 hour documentary as well because
Oh,
there's
for sure,
so
for
much
sure.
material and
We
components.
have tons of footage and interesting things to share about Siufeng's
Yeah,
internal life, but also it was also interesting that Siufeng was going to leave Hong Kong and find their new home in Atlanta.
yeah,
And that follows also events that are happening in Hong Kong. And
yeah,
it was also something that was close to me because I used to live in Hong Kong as well. I was on the process to leave the city as well. And so after we filmed that part in Hong Kong, I came to Atlanta and spent a week there with Siu Fong. And it's I found a completely different person, to be honest. And I think that will show in the film as well.
yeah,
And so, I mean, experiencing and witnessing Siu Fong uh, getting more mature in a way, becoming a different themselves was also super, super nice to see. And I hope the film also reflects that evolution.
yeah.
Yeah. And but Sufo, maybe you can talk a little bit about the experience, maybe.
I can talk for hours.
I know.
For the really like I think invaluable experience, like with Sean, with you, and it's just a really. I mean, when I wasn't able to watch the final cut. Yes, I'm really excited to be at the cinema.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes, tomorrow, like, to watch it. But when I watched the first cut, I was like, I couldn't recognize myself like a few years ago. When I was in Hong Kong, like, I think, a lot of things have changed. As you said, I think I'm actually happier right now in America. Even though there are other issues that we have to tackle here in America that is different from what I experienced in Hong Kong. But I think being able to see myself, transitioning in the sense of not just, how I see gender itself, but, just overall how I see self, the idea of self, and also like life in general. It was a fascinating journey for me.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about being a queer rights activist in Hong Kong and some of the challenges, being authentic might have presented?
Yeah, so when I first started to do advocacy in transgender rights in Hong Kong, the whole idea of transgender was very new.
Hmm.
So most people, general public, even like, professors, in schools, they actually have no idea on what actually transgender
Yeah.
or the idea or what were the challenges of transgender people
Mm.
experience. So I started with like, just telling my story, just sharing my personal, experience and the experience of the community. And then eventually, there were more organizations that, really targeting on transgender healthcare rights or, just in general, like different types of rights that trans people should be able to enjoy in Hong Kong. So, some of the challenges that transgender people experience in Hong Kong are like, discrimination, stigmatization, right? There's still a lot of misunderstanding, misconception about what transgender people are. And, for me, myself, like, it was even more difficult for, back in the days, like, it was even more difficult for people to understand the difference, for example, between people who are non-binary and transgender. So there was a lot of like, conversations and, even like, conflicts within like LGBT like organizations and also with the public. So there are different layers of like challenges that trans people face in Hong Kong.
Yeah. The move to Atlanta, can you sort of talk about being in Atlanta and being in a different environment? But again, talk about some of the differences that moving to Atlanta has brought.
Yes, I think in general, Atlanta is a very queer city.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a very diverse, very queer. People are much more, in comparison to Hong Kong, right? People are much more free to express themselves
Yeah.
and being accepted as such. But I also realized that even in Atlanta, transgender people, non-binary people in general, in comparison to like gay or lesbian or other folks, they are still in comparison less visible. And
Yeah.
so like when I try to like get in touch with other trans people who are actively, doing sports, which, something that I'm very passionate about,
Mhm.
it was not easy. Like it was not easy. People, and also I think Atlanta or Georgia in general, people are more scattered. They are all
Yeah.
living everywhere. So it is really hard to have like, really centered or gathered spaces for people to, let's say, for trans people to, let's say, work out together or, to have different types of like social gathering together. So that was different from Hong Kong because Hong Kong is, comparatively a very packed city. And so it is much easier for trans people to be gathering together. And I was able, for example, to host, workshops, like training workshops at the gym in Hong Kong, and people could actually come all over. So it's a different kind of challenge that I face in Atlanta here.
Yeah.
You bought your car, Siufung.
I'm sorry.
Have you bought your car?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And also, yeah, I mean, yeah, transportation is a problem, right? So when Sean visited me, I still haven't got a car yet. And so, being able, especially if you're living in a very scattered, spaces, everyone is everywhere.
Sure.
Without car and driving, it's actually very hard to connect with one another. So I think that is somehow a problem. And also, like, even like I think the Atlanta queer community is very diverse in terms of race and ethnicity. In general, Asian and Asian American queer folks are, much less visible. So to be honest, like, I've been here for 3.5 years, almost 4 years,
Mhm.
but I haven't, met another Asian American trans person who is living in Atlanta or Georgia. So I think, that is kind of surprising to me.
Mm.
What now, I'm just curious, what part of Atlanta do you live in?
I live actually beside Atlanta, so I live in Decatur. But
Okay.
I went to Emory for my PhD studies.
I
So
know, yeah, I know that I know you work at Emory. I just know if you live, we're in Avondale Estates, which is very, very near Decatur, which is and this, Decatur and Avondale are both very, very, very queer. Lots of queer people here. But let me get back to both you. So,
Yeah.
um, this is a scary time right now in our country because there's a lot of anti-LGBTQIA plus legislation. There is anti-drag sentiment from some people. There's anti-trans sentiment from some people. Why is this film so important to have, at this moment in our time? I'll start with you, Jean-Luc.
Yes, I mean, in terms of queer rights, I think Siufong can definitely tell us more. But yeah, I mean, there's been murders, right, in Atlanta of trans people. We were actually hesitating when making the film to even show Siufong's place, home, in the film. But we hope that definitely, like as Siufong said, we can have more representations, not only trans, non-binary people, but also Asian people
Yeah,
and Asian non-binary LGBTQ people in America, because we want to show diversity, basically, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the purpose of your festival as well. But for this film, we also want to give more insights on Asian issues in particular, if you want to define something that is specific to our film. And also, what
yeah,
I really found interesting spending time with Xu is how they are trying to maybe use Asian theories, in particular Buddhism, to try to just define what is gender fluidity.
yeah.
And I think having this Asian perspective is also important.
Mhm.
And for the US in general, because yeah, the US is a mixture of people from all around, and we hope that the film helps any Americans to have a better understanding of people from Asian background, and because the country is so welcoming to immigrants. So
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
yeah.
it's
but
your
also
phone.
at the same time, yeah, but also at the same time, I think the film is also important because it's also showcase, one of these more controversial, topics right now about trans athletes, right? So, the fact that I'm actually an ambassador of the IATBP, which is a transgender bodybuilding and powerlifting organization that helps to create safe spaces for trans athletes, exactly, right? Because to protect them from, all these like just absurd accusation and everything else, right, of like trans people, and to create that that space for people to actually be themselves, right, and to just enjoy and to to train the body and then to showcase the physique. And I think that is something for me important to showcase, right? Especially when the last 2 3 years we have all these like disputes about in relation to transgender athletes.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Even recently at the Olympics, right? Through phone uh, with the
Yes, yes.
Algerian athletes, right?
Yeah, the Algerian and also the Taiwanese athlete, right? The even though like they were the issues more on sex testing, right? On gender verification, whether they are like so-called quote unquote like having DSD symptom development. But they were initially accused to be transgender women. And so, like, even though, and it showcased the fact that, even though a lot of times people think that, trans athletic issues and rights is just with about trans people, but it's actually, much more influential, and it could influence to, other parties as well.
So, what is next for the film? I mean, we're very honored to be having the premiere. But what's next for the film? What are your short-term plans for the film and your long-term plans for the film?
Short-term plan, we're lucky enough to show the film in Seattle in 1 or 2 weeks from now. I'm flying to Taiwan as well for the Asian premiere, Taiwan
Nice.
International Queer Film Festival. Yeah, it's super exciting, and the team from Hong Kong will join as well. And the film will be shown in Korea as well, in Seoul. And we're expecting a few more festivals in the coming weeks. And definitely the film, we hope to pass on the message of inclusivity in sports of LGBT people. So as much as as many festivals as we can, watch the film will be the best for us and to convey Siufung's message to the world. And we're glad that to have it at Art on Film as really
We're very
launched.
excited.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're very
Uh,
excited. All right.
Maybe we'll a sequel later.
Oh, okay.
When Siufong goes to compete, you have a new competition, Siufong, coming up.
I'm not very sure, but
Okay.
my plan is to potentially compete next year. So maybe you
Yeah,
can
that's right.
help
Remember.
into it. Yeah. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
do
yeah.
a second episode.
Exactly.
That is
That'll be
great.
exciting.
That's great. All right. The world premiere of They Are Sufung takes place Saturday, October 5th at 2 o'clock at Outfront Theater, at 2:30 at Outfront Theater Company. And then it will be available for a very limited virtual window as well. Jean-Luc Sufung, thank you so much for talking to us. Thanks for sharing this film with us. We cannot wait to premiere it. And we look forward to meeting Sufung tomorrow at the screening and having people see this and see this beautiful film.
Thanks so much, Tim.
Thank you
Our
both so
pleasure.
much. I look forward to meeting you tomorrow. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.